What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to tonight's video as we close out the NFL draft. What a draft it was. I'm actually pretty excited to go back and look at the draft recap because I've talked about it in a couple of my videos this weekend. I am in the process of moving into a new house, so I literally saw like 10 picks maybe today on day 3, so there's still a bunch of players. I'm not exactly sure where they went, but, we still got lots of draft content. Tonight, today's video in general, I'm going to grade the entire Philadelphia Eagles draft, and then tomorrow, expect 2 videos. Earlier in the afternoon, I'll do a quick rundown of the AFC grades, and then later that night, I'll do NFC grades, and then on Monday, I'm probably going to have a video in the idea of giving every team's best and worst pick, in my opinion. And then Tuesday, I got another special draft theme video, and then we're going to have to figure out what the hell I'm going to do until Madden 20 happens. But today, right now, tonight, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. I've had time to mull over the draft picks, come up with fair grades that I'm not in the heat of the moment, because I know a lot of people, if you've been following me on Twitter, can say that I'm really, really negative. Someone actually said I'm more negative than EDP about this draft, and I need to sit back and really evaluate, think long term, try to understand why these moves were made, and come up with a fair grade. And still have my personal bias, still stand by some of the guys that I'm disappointed that the Philadelphia Eagles decided not to draft, but make some sense of all these picks. So first up, in the first round, we traded out with the Baltimore Ravens. We gave a 4th and a 6th to move up. I thought that was really good value. And at pick 22, we selected Andre Dillard, offensive tackle from Washington State. I'm going to give this pick a B, a very solid B, but it has a accelerator, if we call it that. And I'll explain that in just one second. So when you look at Andre Dillard as a player on the Eagles, he was drafted to be Jason Peters' replacement. He's going to be the guy that comes in for the bodyguard. Not the same type of player, really. I mean, Jason Peters was an exceptional athlete as well as built like a goddamn monster, whereas Dillard is much more a finesse-style offensive tackle. But you look at the positives of Andre Dillard. He's great in pass protection. He's the most athletic offensive tackle, at least top-end offensive tackle in this year's draft class. And the idea of just how athletic Dillard and Lane Johnson is, I mean, we have the most, if things pan out with Dillard and he gets to learn from Jason Peters, one of the best offensive linemen to ever play. Next year, if he's going to be our starting left tackle, we're going to have probably the 2 most athletic tackles in the National Football League. So that is definitely something that is positive. The negatives of Dillard is the run block concerns, because they did not run the ball a whole lot up there in Washington State versus Philadelphia that likes to run the ball. And I always kind of just questioned the other guys that were available. It was more, like I said, this is more my personal opinion, but I mean, Cody Ford, Hollywood Brown, Greedy Williams, N'Keal Harry, Montez Sweat, those are all guys that, if you watch my live stream video, my live reaction, those are guys I was like, all right, give me those guys. And the one player I felt like we could get that I didn't want was Dillard. And, it's actually happened multiple times throughout my Eagles fandom. My buddies saw that video. They were laughing because I did the same thing when they drafted Nelson Agholor. Kind of said the same thing roughly when they drafted Derek Barnett. And I guess, for the most part, those 2 picks have worked out. So I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to Howie. At the end of the day, always give the benefit of the doubt to Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas. Now, the question for Andre Dillard is, can he challenge for that left guard spot? During the press conference after they made the pick, a couple of the beat reporters were pressing this issue. Do you think he's going to play inside or just be a reserve? And Doug Pearson basically didn't deny that. I feel like if he felt he was going to be just a tackle, he would say, yes, the plan is for him to ease in a tackle. But he kind of left it open-ended. So maybe there's a chance he'll let Dillard try and compete for one of the interior spots, maybe with Isaac Seumalo for that left guard, or whoever is going to be filling in for Brandon Brooks until he's 100%. And if he does, if Dillard can make that transition to guard and play this year at a decent level, I'm not expecting him to play at a super high level because he is a natural tackle, this pick could become an A-. Because that's just an annoying thing. I mean, you look at Cody Ford, he slipped a little bit into the second round, but if you drafted Cody Ford, that has an upside to potentially be that next starting tackle, which is what Dillard's drafted to, but Cody Ford is already a very good interior player, which is what the Philadelphia Eagles need right now. So it is, where Dillard right now, just as a tackle, is a forward-thinking move. Getting a guy like Cody Ford, he could help this year where we have a little bit of a concern about the interior, and then you potentially can flex him out to tackle. So that's just a little bit, but if Dillard can play guard, I'm going to be much more open to this pick. Going into the second round, pick 53, they selected Myles Sanders, the running back from Penn State. I'm giving this a B+. He's arguably running back 2 in this class. I had him as a fringe top 5, but really after Josh Jacobs, it was pretty close. Logjam between, Justice Hill for me, David Montgomery, Darrell Henderson, and Myles Sanders for who was the second best running back in this class. I've never officially put Myles Sanders at 2, but, he was in the mix. And technically, he was drafted as the second best running back in the class, as he was the second one selected. He has a 3-down skill set. He had an absolutely huge combine. I mean, from an athletic standpoint, he had really good numbers. They weren't eye-popping, but throughout the drills, he was undoubtedly the best running back in the drills. Caught the ball very well, looked incredibly fluid. This is a forward-thinking move because Jordan Howard is assumed to just be a one-year rental, so he could be RB1 in 2020. And the low mileage at Penn State, only really 1 year as a starter because he played behind Saquon Barkley. That's always a positive. Now, the negatives is that, you could argue that next year's running back class is better. And if you're just looking at pick 53s, where Philly was comfortable selecting a running back, are the running backs that are going to be available at 53 next year, where are they going to compare to Myles Sanders? And I think if we're just trying to be, straight up, probably will be a little bit better. They're going to be DeAndre Swift there, J.K. Dobbins potentially. And Myles Sanders has had some fumble issues. I'm already getting flashbacks of Ryan Matthews trying to close out games for the Philadelphia Eagles and just having those costly fumbles. But ultimately, I like this pick. I feel like he is going to be part of a healthy running back by committee system with Jordan Howard and Corey Clement this season. So I'm excited about that. It definitely bolsters our running back committee, and I do like this pick. Going to the second round pick at 57, they selected J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, wide receiver from Stanford. I'm going to give this a B-, and it's in reality, in terms of a player, it should be a B, but I'm going to kind of defend why I think I got to kind of have a little bit of a negative stigma to this pick. But the positives for Arcega-Whiteside, he's Alshon Jeffrey 2.0, even a little bit faster. He makes the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, the best red zone team in the NFL. I mean, Arcega-Whiteside was debatably the best red zone wide receiver in the draft. You throw that in with Alshon Jeffrey, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz. We now have the dominant offensive line that we have had, a power back in Jordan Howard. I mean, I don't think, at least on paper, there's no team that's better than the Philadelphia Eagles in the red zone. And the question could be, can he play slot? If he can end up emerging as a slot wide receiver, this pick definitely rounded up to a B. But right now it's staying as a B- because of the negatives, because who was still available? You had DK Metcalf and Hakeem Butler were there. If you wanted to get those freaks, more intriguing, higher ceilings than J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. But they went with the safe pick. That's a common theme for all the Eagles picks this year. And it's a theme that a lot of successful teams do. They get the safe pick. The exciting picks, the more exciting the pick, the more likelihood it could potentially bust. And that's kind of what you would see here. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has a much safer career trajectory than a DK Metcalf or Hakeem Butler. But I'm just, for argument's sake, those guys would be a little bit more exciting and offer the higher ceiling. But for me, Andy Isabella, the man that ultimately will be known as the pick for the Josh Rosen to the Dolphins trade, I think Andy Isabella offered what we needed more than Arcega-Whiteside, and this comes down to personal opinion. I've said when I talked about this pick the other day, I think a wide receiver core should all complement each other. You see teams that just draft the same type of receivers. For every Patriots that kind of works, you get a Carolina Panthers. They try to double up on those huge, gigantic wide receivers in Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess. Didn't work out. So we have Alshon Jeffrey. Now you bring in a guy that's literally the exact same type player in J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Now I see a benefit to that, but my personal opinion is I like a wide receiver core that complements each other. When you look at what the Philadelphia Eagles don't really have, they don't have the guy that can be the next big deep threat once Deshaun Jackson, hangs him up, which is, we're pretty much at the end of his career, and I hope he can be productive, but we don't really have a successor. Or Nelson Aguilar, who's on that 1 year, almost $10 million deal. Is he going to get traded? Is he going to be on the roster opening day? Is he going to be here in 2020? All those things are unlikely, and he's our starting slot wide receiver. We don't have a slot wide receiver that can take over for him. So we're missing speed, and we're missing a guy that can play in the slot. And Andy Isabella offers both of those traits that we need to complete this wide receiver core. So I just made the argument that if, I would have personally went Andy Isabella here, but I do like Arcega-Whiteside as a prospect. I watch a lot of Pac-12 after dark, and this guy can absolutely take games over and is unbelievable in the red zone. Going to pick number 4 in the 4th round, 138, they selected Sharif Miller, defensive end from Penn State. Now, it kills me to give him a low grade because he's kind of like a mini Vinny Curry. He grew up as a Philadelphia Eagle fan, and anytime we get those players, I always just feel like not only does it make you feel good, but you just get that, I don't know what it is. You just feel like they're going to play harder. They're going to get their potential. They're going to raise it to another level because they're playing for their favorite team. But I had to give it a C. It's a safe pick. Sharif Miller is a safe defensive end. He's a guy that has a limited ceiling, but he's also, not really good at bust. He's always going to be, a decent rotational type player. He had flashes of really good play in 2018 for Penn State. He just struggles with consistency, but he's a well-rounded player. He can play the pass. He can play the run. It's just a safe pick. But the reason why he gets a low grade is that he's most likely going to be defensive end 5 this season. And with the good linebackers on the board and the fact that we only have one legit linebacker on this roster in Nigel Bradham, you had Voshawn Joseph from the Florida Gators. You had Mac Wilson from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Both those guys, they're going to be better than probably anyone Philly can pick up as an undrafted free agent, better than anybody Philly could potentially trade with. You have Darren Lee from the Jets. He's been a popular name. Give me any of those other guys except that, and it was just a frustrating pick. It's a safe pick. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's, he'll make the roster. He'll be part of a decent rotation there, but it's just, I don't know, man. Philly just doesn't want linebackers, I guess. But yeah, see, it's just a safe, boring pick, a bland pick for an all right player. And then finish up the draft in the 5th round at 167. They selected Clayton Thorson, quarterback from Northwestern. I'm giving this a C-. I mean, you try to find the positive in it. He has prototypical size. He's what Doug Peterson likes in his quarterbacks. If you look at what we've had, Nick Foles, Nate Sudfeld, Carson Wentz, they're all that prototypical 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 220, 230-pound quarterback, and Thorson fits that mold. The negatives, I mean, if we had to go quarterback here, Tyree Jackson. Give me personally Tyree Jackson and his very, very high ceiling than a guy that, like had 2 more touchdowns than picks last year. I mean, you can't really look at stats always, but I just feel like with the athletic background, the fact that he kind of does, fit Doug Peterson's prototype, and he has much higher ceiling than Tyree Jackson. If we had to go QB at 167, very disappointed we didn't go him, or even Brett Rippon to a lesser extent, even though he doesn't fit that prototypical Eagle profile for a quarterback. But I'm just looking outside of quarterback at 167. I'm not going to list them all, but I counted 29 other guys that got drafted between 167 and the end of the draft that I personally would have taken over Clayton Thorson. And I guess to wrap this up, the only reason this pick's not a D is just because Doug's track record with quarterbacks. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I feel like this might have been a thing where Doug says, I want that guy. I think that guy has something about him. And, for what limit we've seen with Nate Sudfeld has looked kind of intriguing, to say the least. Never so much as a starter, but as a guy that we could feel confident if, I'm not even going to say what could happen, I think we might have a chance with a guy like Nate Sudfeld. And then we saw with Nick Foles. He went out and made sure we got Nick Foles, and we all know what happened there. And we've seen him gamble with Carson Wentz as a starter, trading Sam Bradford and going with Wentz. That worked out. So Doug has a really good track record with quarterbacks, and I think ultimately he gave Howie and Joe Douglas the thumbs up on Thorson to go bring him in as our 3rd quarterback. So from that, I have to give it a C-, and versus me just being completely my opinion, my bias, and just shitting all over this pick. So that is the base draft. We'll talk about the undrafted in just a sec. So overall, because, the average actually grades out to a B-, but I think because there's that potential for Dillard to emerge maybe as a guard this year, I'm just going to give it a B. It was a safe, boring draft with the Philadelphia Eagles, and, safe and boring, those tend to be the descriptions of teams that continually play very well and draft well. You don't always get the exciting picks, but if you get the right pick, there's a difference, you're going to continually win. So, there's no real player I think I'm going to rush out and get their jersey. That'd be nice if we got at least one of those guys. That'd be super pumped up to get. But it was a safe draft, and I think ultimately, even though they didn't get who I wanted, I'm not egotistical enough because I'm just some damn YouTuber not to just say, what, Howie Roseman, Joe Douglas, this front office so far, for the most part, has hit on their draft classes, and we got to trust them. So we've had some undrafted free agents trickle in. I'm not going to lie. Also, fairly upset that, a bunch of big-name guys that I thought we should have been in on, we've been unable to land. But I predicted one of our UDFAs, so that's pretty cool. So far, we got Kevin Wilkins from Rutgers, D-tackle Anthony Rush from UAB, cornerback Jamalcolm Liggins from Dickinson State. I'm not going to lie, I don't know any of those guys. But we got offensive guard Ryan Bates from Penn State. He had a really good combine. He brings guard-tackle flexibility. He's just a death move. We got DeAndre Tompkins from Penn State. He's just one of those typical Penn State guys. Didn't have a lot of production, but had a really, really big numbers at the pro day. I think he might have gotten the 4.3s for his speed. I can actually double check that. Just give me a sec. And yes, at his pro day, ran a 4.33, so that's some speed at wide receiver. They got linebacker Joey Alaferi, who also had a really good pro day for Stanford. That is our linebacker we brought in. He ran a 4.49 for a linebacker to pro day. Those are really good numbers. He's had some all right production. But the actual UDFA that I kind of predicted, they got Nate Herbig, the guard from Stanford. He's a massive human being, fits that mold of a Doug Peterson offensive lineman. So ultimately, I'm not really going to sit here and grade undrafted free agents. Plus, there's still going to be more trickling in. But I do like the two offensive linemen we brought in, Ryan Bates and Nate Herbig. I thought both those guys were draftable offensive linemen, and we need to beef up in the interior at guard. We get that speedy wide receiver potentially in DeAndre Tompkins from Penn State. And Aliferi, I mean, for an UDFA, a 4.49, he's an athletic linebacker. See what he can do in training camp. But I personally still feel like maybe someone Darren Lee from the Jets is going to come. Like, Philly obnoxiously ignored the linebacking spot when clearly that's a big need. So I feel like there's a trade or something, because you look at the undrafted or the potential free agents at linebacker, there's not much there. So I feel like Howie has something in the books, and I'm going to continue to give this front office the benefit of the doubt. So let me know what you guys felt about this Philadelphia Eagles mock draft. I'm giving it a B. Do you guys think it should be higher? Do you think it should be lower? Let me know in the comment section below. And as I said, tomorrow we're going to be doing full grades. It's going to be obviously a lot more quicker than this, because I'm going to go through every team in the conference. We'll do AFC and NFC, so make sure you stay tuned for that. As always, your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.